81b. And what number is it? The Mishnah in the Art Scroll. B1. Okay.
81b. Yeah.
We're starting at the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, "Hasheichet b'nimtzas treifa." Talking about Eisav Espanai, to shech the mother and the child on the same day is forbidden. So let's say he shechts, and it turns out that it's a treifa. The animal wasn't eligible to be eaten. It had something wrong in the lungs. Or let's say Hashechet Lavei Zara. Someone shechts, but his intention is that he's shechting for an idol, like the sacrifice to an idol. So also this can't be eaten. It's not eligible to be eaten. So we're looking here at types of shchitas that are not going to be kosher shchitas. Shchitas kosher.
Why, if he's gonna, the intent is for an idol, is he doing shchita? And that part I never understood. If shchita is because you're following the Torah. It's like you said the other day, the Ganav who prays, he should be successful. Why isn't it just a Hahorik? Doesn't make sense. He's shechting, Kedasu Kedin, to do Punkt Fakirat. Never really understood that.
It's a distortion of the religion. It's like Jews for Yashka to have a Sefer Torah. Why would a Jew for Yashka have a Sefer Torah in their temple?
Oh, so he's so tzedurate, he's doing this, but he's doing that.
Well, isn't this just a list of kinds of
Yeah.
animals from which you can't have hana?
Yeah, I'm just asking.
Why
it
would
never
he-
made
why would a
sense to me.
person
Why
do
would
that?
he even do shchita in that situation?
But this is a good answer.
I like the answer. Well, I don't like it, but I understand.
Okay, the next case is Hashechet Paras Chatas. Someone shechts a paraduma. Now, the paraduma you don't eat. So this is another example of something that's not eaten. And we're discussing here if he would then shecht the offspring, or if maybe this is the offspring. V'shara niskal. An animal that kills a man, the animal is put to death. So if someone, before the animal is put to death, shechts the shar niskal, so the shar niskal is forbidden to have any benefit from. So another example of something that can't be eaten. Ve'egla rufa. Let's say someone shechts an egla rufa. Egla rufa, this is a person that's found dead outside the city. So they break the neck, they chop the neck from the back of this calf. And he goes ahead and he shechts it. It's also asr bana. He shechts it. And he shechts together with it the mother of the child. Okay. So Reb Shimon Paiter, Reb Shimon exempts. We learned Reb Shimon's opinion before. It's quoted Reb Shimon's opinion. That Reb Shimon holds that the shchita she'eina ruya is not considered a shchita. A shchita that's not eligible to be eaten is not counted. However, the Chacham say no. He's chayiv. All of these were actual shchitas. You have a secondary problem with it, that you can't eat it for whatever reason, but it still was shchita. Now we have new cases. Hasheichet b'neslavna biyadei. Let's say someone shechts, and he messes up the shchita. He didn't do a good job. It became a nevela. V'hanoicher, or someone that doesn't do a shchita at all. He spears the animal. V'ma'aker, or someone that rips out the simanim, the esophagus or the trachea. He kills it that way. So patamisha ma'asav espanai. Even the rabbis would agree that this is not considered oisav espanai, the mother and child, because this is not a shchita at all. The first ones, they argued, they said it's a shchita. You have a secondary problem, but you still did shchita. Here, it's not even shchita. Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Reb Shimon ben Lakish says, now Reb Shimon ben Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan are going to be quoted here. These are the Israeli Tiberius from Tiberia. These two are going to be quoted. We start off. They're really first generation Amiraim, and they're, unless you consider that, yeah, the first generation Amiraim, and they qualify what the Mishnah is referring to. Lo yishanu el sheshachat rishon la'avodah zara, v'sheni l'shulchanei. We're talking about here that there's two animals. And we said that if someone shechs for Avodah Zarah, the sages say that he's chayiv. So when would he be chayiv for shechting a mother and child? Reb Shimon ben Lakish says only if the first one was for Avodah Zarah and the second one was for eating. Either mother or child. We'll see later then. It doesn't matter which one was first. However, Aval Rishon l'Shulchan v'Sheni l'Avodah Zarah, then Pater. He's going to be exempt from getting the lashes for Oisev Espenai, for slaughtering mother and child. The Kamlei B'derabba Minei, because he has a much more serious punishment for Avodah Zarah, which that is a death penalty. So he's not going to get Malchus for Oisev Espenai. So the sages said he's chayiv because of Oisev Espenai. That's only possible if the first one was the Avodah Zarah one. The different action was slaughtering, let's say, the child. That child you weren't allowed to slaughter. And the sages say that the first one is counted as a slaughtering, even though it was for Avodah Zarah, but that's a secondary issue. It was considered slaughtered. The second one is the child. You violated the prohibition of Oisev Espenai. The Chiddush of Rish Lakish we're going to see shortly, but his main point is that there's a rule of Kamlei B'derabba Minei. If you do two prohibitions in the same go, at the same time, you only get the more severe one. I gave an example the other day. Someone that shoots another person, and he doesn't have to pay for the shirt, the hole in the shirt or something. He just gets the death penalty, and that's it. Now,
Consolation.
right.
That's a good example of this principle.
Amalei Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan happens to be Rish Lakish's brother-in-law.
Just not to go off, but like if a person shot somebody and it was like a week or two, and then the person died, that he still has to pay for pain and medication and the other stuff before he died. Or let's say it was a month before he died, so he's still going to get the death penalty, but there's still things that have to be handled monetarily. That the person who got shot, he has to go to a doctor, he needs medication, he doesn't work for.
I don't know the answer.
Funeral costs.
He's found guilty, but the deceased has to collect.
Sounds like a doctor's job.
No, but
So,
you're onto something.
Rabbi
There are time frames around it in which it's determined that he's no longer the legal cause of that.
Right. So Rabbi Yochanan says, "Zu afilu tineke shel beis rabban yednei." So the statement of Rish Lakish is so obvious that even the children know that. We don't need to say that. Ella, rather, if you want to say something that's interesting, so you should state the following: Pamim shafilu shachat rishon l'shulchan v'sheni l'avodah zarah is chayiv. It's possible the opposite. It's possible that even if the first one was shechted for himself, the second one was shechted for avodah zarah, and nevertheless he's still chayiv for Oisev Espenai. Why? Kamlei b'derabba minei. We should give him the more strict one. It says Kagain, for example, the Asr bei mishum Oisev Espenai, v'le Asr bei mishum avodah zarah. They gave him the warning for Oisev Espenai. The witnesses were there, and they could have warned him, don't slaughter for avodah zarah. But instead they warned him, don't slaughter because the mother was just slaughtered. So then he's not going to get the death penalty. He's only going to have to get lashes for slaughtering for what he was warned for. See, Rabbi Yochanan saying, that's a chiddush. That we don't say, Kamlei b'deramine, if there is no death penalty, practically. But Reb Shimon ben Lakish says, no. Even the Chiyasr bei Pater, since when they would have warned him, he would have been Pater. Kila Yasr Bey, when they don't warn him, Nami Pater, he's also exempt. So Rish Lakish does have a chiddush with this. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Oh, you don't have a chiddush in what you're saying." They're really now they're arguing, but Rish Lakish, according to Rish Lakish's opinion, there is a real chiddush in what he said, that it would be specifically in that case of if the second slaughtering was for himself, that there would be Malchus for Oisev Espenai. Because if the second slaughtering is for Avodah Zarah, even if he was warned for Oisev Esbenai, he still won't get Malchus for Oisev Esbenai. Why? Because Rish Lakish holds that Kamle B'derabinai doesn't have to be practically brought out. That once you kill him, so then he doesn't have to get the other lesser punishments of Malchus or monetary payments. He doesn't hold that. He holds that the prohibition itself that would incur the capital punishment, that already absolves all the lesser punishments. When they followed their reasoning, where they argued about this in another area, the Chiyasa Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came, Rav Dimi was one of the travelers, and he said over in the name of Rabbi Yochanan many things. He's right over here, Rav Dimi. So when Rav Dimi came,
He's from Babel, or
well, it's hard to say. He's on the list of. His name is Rav Dimi, so it probably was from Babel, but he
It says over there that he came to Bavel from Eretz Yisrael.
right,
But he said this.
right.
uh-huh.
So he would bring the statements from Rabbi Yochanan. I'm just saying that where was he born?
Yeah.
So because Rebbe would be from Eretz Yisrael, Rav is from Babel. The Yud is the Israel title. So when Rav Dimi came, he says, "Chayvim mises shogegen, b'chayvim malchus shogegen, b'davar acher." If someone does this sin, whether it's his shogeg, his unintentional, inadvertent, but over here it just has to mean that he wasn't warned. And that's enough. We're talking about that the person, for whatever reason, is committing the crime that could be deserving of a capital punishment, but for whatever reason they're not going to be able to administer it because he wasn't warned. Or Chayvi Malchus again, the same with Chayvi Malchus. He should incur the lashes, but for whatever reason he's not going to get it. V'davar acher. Davar acher, I guess, would mean money. And some other punishment. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says that he's Chayev because he doesn't get the larger punishment, so he's Chayev for the lesser punishment. Rish Lakish Amar Pater, Rish Lakish says he's exempt. So we see that they argue about this in other places. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev. Rabbi Yochanan says he's Chayev Dalai Yasser, but he wasn't warned for the larger punishment. He's not going to get it, so therefore he's chayav for the lesser one. Rish Lakish Amar Pater. Rish Lakish says he's exempt. The kivan the kiyasser bei pater, ki layasser bei nami pater. Since when they would have warned him, he would have been exempt from the lesser punishment. So when they don't warn him for the larger punishment, he's still exempt for the lesser punishment. So in other words, it's not the actual receiving of the larger punishment that exempts him from the lesser punishment. It's just that this prohibition automatically rules out the lesser punishment.
It says that he was from Eretz Yisrael, and he was banished from Eretz Yisrael by the Emperor Constantius. And when he fled, he left. He settled in Babel.
So 1 second. I need to see more about that.
You're talking about Rish Lakish?
No, wait,
no,
this is interesting. This is a Aleph Society.
Yeah.
This is from
Steinsaltz.
Steinsaltz. So this is discussing Rav Dimi. Now,
There was other things also.
Constantius the second. Constantius the second. Not Constantine. Constantine was in like 300. Would Rav Dimi be around?
Yeah. It's
Oh, good, on the chart.
That's
Excellent.
300. It's the DMD is down here. That's the English year.
Why was he banished? I gotta check that out.
What year is he saying?
You see, what happens is the Yerushalmi gives us a lot of uncensored information. The Bavli was very heavily edited. The Yerushalmi wasn't edited the same way. So you get a lot more, the stories are much more detailed and And you get names of emperors and Roman
It's-
emperors more in the Yerushalmi.
It says here he would frequently go back and forth between Eretz Yisrael and Bavel, but then there was a decree of banishment issued by Constantius against the teachers of Yiddishkeit in Eretz Yisrael,
Uh-huh.
and he settled in Bavel.
Interesting.
Oh.
Okay.
He was from Turkey, this Constantine. No, it's Turkish.
But was the empire
Roman.
was divided
Oh,
already?
no.
I think it was divided later. It was
Oh, so it's all the same.
the east and the west was divided later. Okay. Utzricha. You see, Reish Lakish said his halacha in our case regarding Oisav Espanai together with Avodah Zarah, killing the mother and child in the same time that the person is doing idolatry, that he wouldn't incur the lashes because it would have incurred capital punishment. And he also says this in other cases where Rav Dimi brought it. So the question is, why does Reish Lakish have to repeat this in every area, in every instance? So the Gemara explains, Stricha, it's necessary to say in this case by us, as well as in those other cases. Why? Diashmin and Baha, if we would only say it here, Baha kam Reb Shimon ben Lakish. Over here, Reb Shimon ben Lakish says that there's no Malkus, Aval Baha. But if it would be in other cases, maybe he would have agreed to Rabbi Yochanan. You see,
Doesn't really explain.
it doesn't explain.
That's very like.
The Rashi adds something in here that says that, let's say the case that they're dealing with over there is money and malchus. That if you get malchus, you don't have to pay the money. Over here, it's death and malchus. So why are we going to give him malchus? He's going to get killed. So over here, Reish Lakish says that we don't give him the malchus because it's one sort of punishment. But maybe money you would have to pay anyway, because that's sort of rectifying something. You caused the damage. It's different. Maybe he would agree to Rabbi Yochanan that he still has to pay the money. That's what Rashi adds in. Aval b'haim meidel Rabbi Yochanan. Be itmar b'ha. But if it would only say it over there,
By the case of money.
by the case of money, b'ha kam Rabbi Yochanan. Over there, Rabbi Yochanan says that he has to pay. Aval b'ha. But in our case, where it's just death and malchus, ema meidel Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Maybe he would agree to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish that he doesn't have to pay. So tzrichas, we have to say both instances because we wouldn't have been able to derive one from the other. That they argue in both. Okay. Now what the Gemara is going to do is we're going to take cases from the Mishnah where we said that these are machlekes Reb Shimon and the Chachamim. If this is considered a valid shchita, we're going to discuss, is it really, according to Reb Shimon, an invalid shchita, and it's not going to be counted for Eisav Espanai. So we're going to do this to a few cases. It says, Uparas chatas shchita sheina ruyahi. When we discussed in the Mishnah that if someone shechs the para aduma, we said that that's not a valid shchita, and Reb Shimon holds that if he then shechs the child of the para aduma, if a para aduma had a child, you can still use the mother. Or the para aduma would be the child, and then you shech the mother. Maybe I don't know. I don't remember what the halach is. So, Reb Shimon says it's not valid. It's not a real Eisav Espanai because you can't eat the para aduma. It says v'hatanya, but it was taught in the Brayso. Reb Shimon aimer parash mitama to maseichlin, that the meat of the para aduma is susceptible to tuma. That food is as if it's food. Why? Because there was a moment when it could have been food, when it could have been eaten. What we're asking is that the para aduma could have been eaten if something would have changed. If that's the case, then that shchita had a moment of being eligible. Especially, we're going to say, according to Reb Shimon, because Reb Shimon holds anything that was kol harai, anything that's eligible at one moment, even if it never happened, is considered eligible. So we're asking, why does Reb Shimon say this is not Eisav Espanai? This could have been actual food, it could have been eaten. V'amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish, and Reb Shimon ben Lakish says, Omer Haya Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says, Para niftas al gabi marachta, that the paraduma could even be redeemed after it's been slaughtered, when it's on the fire, ready to be burnt, because you have to burn it and turn it into ashes. And so if it could have been eaten, so then this should be a valid shechita. And if you then shech the child or the mother of it, it should be Yosef Espenai. Rashi has an interesting issue here. He says, why are we talking about that could incur tumah from food? We know that a para aduma gives off tumah anyway. If someone handles the para aduma, it gives off tumah. The people that are involved in it become tummy. So Rashi says we're talking about that the para aduma actually gives off tumah if you touch it. Here we're talking about that it was surrounded by a dough. It was sort of like a pie, a meat pie, a piece of the para aduma wrapped in this dough, a wrap. And the dough didn't have a full kazayas. And actually, it would need to be a kabeya. It didn't have the shear. It didn't have a kabeya. But together with the meat, it does. So you're not actually touching the paradum. You're only touching the dough. Now, is the meat considered food? So we're saying yes, the meat is considered food because you could have redeemed it if you would have found a better animal than it. And it could have been redeemed, and then it would have been, you shechted it before, it would have been a kosher shechita. So since it could have been food, you should have applied the rules of Yosef Espenai. So Amar Rav Shaman bar Abba Rav Yechanan Paras Chatas in the Mishnah. Rav Shaman bar Abba says the name of Rabbi Yechanan that Paras Chatas is not a Mishnah, which means we have to take it out. I doubt he's on the list. It's not so common.
What does that mean? He says it shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be here.
It should be taken out of our Mishnah.
That's good.
Because Reb Shimon wouldn't say pater. Next case. The Gemara asks the same thing. The egla arufa lav shchita ruyihi. Well, egla arufa, if someone shechts an egla arufa, we said that, it's forbidden to get any benefit from it. So therefore it's not an eligible shchita. But it was taught in the Mishnah. Nimtza ha'hayrig. If we find the murderer, Ad shalei teraf egla, before the neck was broken on the egla, teitziv beider. You can go eat it.
Wow.
Well, you have to shecht it. But so what? He shechted it. It's an egla rufa and he shechted it. Why are you saying that it's aser ba'ana? Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish mishum Reb Yanai. Reb Shimon ben Lakish says the name of Reb Yanai. Reb Yanai is right above Reb Yechanan. It's the teacher of Reb Yechanan. So he's really the first generation of Amiran. Shimon ben Lakish says in the name of Reb Yanai that Egla Rufa in a Mishnah. Next one we've just deleted. We've just deleted the Egla Rufa from the Mishnah.
Authentic.
What are we going to be left with? Sheikhet v'nimtza streifa, Sheikhet l'avei zara.
I have a question. How
Yeah.
can these people that come after argue on the validity of the Mishnah that was compiled earlier by Atana?
It was a typo.
The typo.
They're Jewish.
How can they?
No respect.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah.
They're not arguing on the Mishnah. They're arguing whether the Mishnah itself was part of whether this piece was part of the Mishnah or not. It's not arguing in the Mishnah. It's arguing whether it was a Mishnah.
That's what I'm saying. How are they allowed to
It
do
wasn't.
that?
It was asking us. It was sort of like canonized, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi came and he said, "Oh, take that one out."
Plus, they say some of the Amoraim from the first generation were considered like on the level of the Tanaim.
Uh-huh.
That's a second possibility.
Well, I'm not sure how to do this, but maybe there's a way of getting the Mishnah to have. You see, it could be the Machlekes Reb Shimon Paiter v'Chachamim Mechayven. Maybe the arrangement of the text could be only on the later cases. There's Reb Shimon Paiter v'Chachamim Mechayven. We listed 5 cases. Maybe what they mean to say is that Reb Shimon Paiter v'Chachamim Mechayven is on some of those cases, but not all of those cases, and somehow we can divide it and say it's on the. They don't know. It doesn't actually fit perfectly. But,
That's good.
Excuse me.
Good luck. Umiyama Rabbi Yanai Hachi. The Gemara asks, does Rabbi Yanai? He's also teaching. Does Rabbi Yanai actually say this? That we are going to amend the Mishnah and we're going to take something out of it? Rabbi Yanai says, Gevul Shemati Ba. Well, actually, let's see. That Rabbi Yanai says, I heard a limit of when the Egla Rufa becomes forbidden. V'shachachti, but I forgot when it is. B'nazben Chavrai Leimar, but the people in the yeshiva think that Yiridasel Inachales Sarta. Once the calf is brought down to the valley, from that moment it becomes Asr Bahana. Even if you shecht it regularly, then do a regular shchita, not breaking the neck. Even if you do a regular shchita, it's already forbidden, it's finished. Now, if that's the case, so what was our problem? We asked the question. Egla Rufa, Reb Shimon says, is eligible to be eaten if we find the murderer. So why does he say that Egla Rufa is Asr Bana and it's not a good shchita and we don't count it for Oisav Espanai? And Rabbi Yanai says, oh, that's such a good question, we're going to take it out of the Mishnah. Why do we have to do that? Rabbi Yanai says that there is a demarcation of when it's Asr, when it's permitted, and we could have answered that problem so simply. Vim Isa, and if that's correct, Lishni, let him answer. Kan kaidim yerida, kan la'achi yerida. That when do we say that it's not eligible, that it's not considered Oisav Espanai? Well, it was already brought down to the valley. When do we say that you can eat the Egla Rufa because we found the murderer? That's before it was brought to the valley. So what's our problem? Why do we have to say that? Oh, we're going to amend the Mishnah? We have a good answer. Amar Pinchas Breder Rabami. Pinchas says the name of Rabami. Anan Mishmei Rab Shimon ben Lakish Masnin and La Egla Rufa in the Mishnah. We didn't say this in the name of Rabbi Yanai that Egla Rufa is not a Mishnah. We were taught this, that it was in the name of Rish Lakish himself. We had Amr Shimon ben Lakish Mishum Rabbi Yanai Eina Egla Rufa in a Mishnah. It wasn't in the name of Rabbi Yanai, because Rabbi Yanai, according to Rabbi Yanai, we could have answered it. We could have answered the problem. We're saying not in the name of Rabbi Yanai. We were taught this in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, we're on 82a. Ki avinon beirav papi kashalon. Rav Ashi says, when I was in the house of Rav Papi, we had a question. Mi amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish Achi. Did Reb Shimon ben Lakish actually say this? V'yitmar, but it was stated, Tzipayri Mitzaira me'emasai nesarin. When are the birds of a Mitzaira forbidden? They're Asr Ba'ana. The part of the purification process of a Mitzaira, of a leper, is he has two birds. One of them is slaughtered, the other one is just sent away, dipped in the blood and sent away. Now the one that's sent away, people can eat it. If they find it, they can eat it. It's not a problem. You shecht it and you eat it. The Torah didn't send it away for people to stumble over, that they should commit a sin when they find it and slaughter it not knowing. So that's permissible. But the other one is forbidden. So when is the birds of the mitzvah forbidden? Rabbi Yechanan mishash shchita, from the time that it's slaughtered. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish mishas lekicha. Shimon ben Lakish says that from the time that it's purchased, it's forbidden. V'amrinan, my time with Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, how does he know? What's his reason? What's his source? Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish to say that the birds of the mitzvah are forbidden from the time they're purchased. He says, Gamar kicha kicha me'egla rufa. He learns the word purchased. Kicha means taken or purchased from the egla rufa. Just like when the egla rufa is taken, it's forbidden. So too, when the birds are taken, it's already forbidden. We have a problem. The problem is that Rish Lakish says that it's forbidden even from when it's taken. What are we talking about that you can even go ahead and shecht it later and eat it if the murderer was found? Rish Lakish holds that it's forbidden from when it's taken. Now, we're going to assume that when it's taken means that it's taken down to the valley. So Ela Amar Rav Chia Barabba. Rav Chia Barabba says Amar Rabbi Yechanan, name of Rabbi Yechanan, Egla Rufei in the Mishnah. It wasn't Rabbi Yanai, it wasn't Rish Lakish, it was Rabbi Yechanan that said Egla Rufei is not a Mishnah. Rav Chia Barabba is probably the main student of Rabbi Yechanan. Rav Chia Barabba. The Gemara Bracha says Rav Chia Barabba reviewed the teachings of Rabbi Yechanan every 30 days. He was an expert in Rabbi Yechanan's teachings. He says that in the name of Rabbi Yechanan that we have to take Egla Rufa out of the Mishnah. So what are we left with in the Mishnah? That would be a machlekes Reb Shimon and the Chachamim regarding Oisav Espanai? Well, if he slaughters and it's a treifa, if he slaughters for Avodah Zarah, and the Shara Niskal. Because the other two, Paraduma and Egla Rufa, that would have to be taken out.
According to Rish Lakish, you don't have to take out egg.
According to Rish Lakish, you don't have to, right? Okay, next Mishnah. Shnayim shalakchu para ubena. Two people went to the market, and one bought the mother and one bought the child. Now, whoever's going to slaughter it first is going to mess up the other one's afternoon barbecue, because the second one can't slaughter it. So who has the right to do the slaughtering? This is very interesting. Well, if someone sells just the child and he keeps the mother for himself, the rule is that he has given the rights that day to the buyer, to the purchaser, to slaughter it that day, and he's not allowed to. But let's say two people buy it. So the Mishnah says,
I thought the issue was just on the one person can not do also Vespa.
no, even if it's two people.
But if they're sold separately in the marketplace, and
Right.
let's say they didn't know that,
You
and
have to
each
tell
one
them.
did a shchita.
Yeah.
That's the question.
Is that what the question is?
Well, that's what we're discussing. We're assuming that they're sold by one person, mother and child. So it's sold to two different people. So who's going to be allowed? They're sold on the same day, let's say. So who's going to be allowed to slaughter it? One has to wait for the other one. So the rule is, the one that purchased it first has the rights.
Oh, so they're given the knowledge that this is a mother
Yeah.
and child. So
The
they're
second
not
one would have to be
competing.
notified.
Yeah.
V'im kadam hasheni, zacha. And if the second one immediately slaughters it, he wins. He merits.
And if they both did at the same time,
It's a problem. It's a problem.
They split it. It's mamish a problem.
You can eat the meat of Oisav Espanai. It doesn't become asr. It's just someone's going to get malchus.
So you
If they were warned.
You couldn't have any middlemen here.
If
you
they
know,
were warned, right?
You know, well, I'm going to buy a cow from you,
Right.
and I'm going to sell it to Remy. And he's going to say to me, Naftali, what about the mother? And I say, "Weiß nicht. I don't